All right. It says I'm live. I'm going to go ahead and believe it. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to SerenityOS Office Hours. I'm not sure if I believe it, actually. Let me just see if somebody tells me I'm here. Well, okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever fully trust this thing, but it does seem to work. So, hello, everybody. Very nice to see all the people already here. The layout of this chat is switching around a little bit, but seems okay. Very nice to see all the people with the gold yaks. So, in the last episode of Office Hours, Anderson from Brazil asked me if I could set up YouTube memberships, and I did. So these these gold yaks that you see on some people, they mean that they are channel members, and that gives you access to some emojis and stuff like that. And just to be clear, it's completely optional. It's just a way to support the channel, and it is a little bit fun, I have to admit. I've been using the custom emojis myself in almost every comment I've made since adding them. Anyway, it's office hours, and we're going to do what we do every Friday, which is talk about SerenityOS. So if you're new here, what we do is we take questions, anything relating to SerenityOS or adjacent topics like programming and such. It's all good. You ask the questions, bring the topics, and we will dive into whatever comes up. Sure, there's a lot of people here today. That is very, very nice. Let's see. Milan says, would be cool if there's a space for radio button eyes that we have on Discord. Yeah, I think I have some unused emote slots already. I have to... YouTube doesn't give you that many emote slots. Like, the starting number was just 4, so I had to pick 4 emotes. And as the number of members grows, I can add a few more emotes. So I'll look into adding some more. Paul saying, how was your day today? What did you work on today? My day was actually pretty good. I've been to the car mechanic to have my wheels replaced. But outside of that, I was doing a bunch of programming, working on a Wikipedia issue, actually, in the browser. I was making the main page and talk, like these links up here, and these links over here, like they actually show up somewhat correctly now. Previously, they were all stacked on top of each other. Now they actually like stack up next to each other instead of on top of each other. So that's what I was working on. And it's been a nice day. Thank you for asking. Trees Orc is asking, how did I get a job at Apple? That is right, Paul. I did make a video about that. Let me go and find it though. But yeah, I have a video describing how I got a job, something like that. How I got engineering jobs at Apple and Nokia with no degree. You might find this video interesting. So, wow, look at me. So young. I've been doing this for a while, I guess. This is from July 2019. But yeah, that kind of describes the process that I went through. And also I show the resume that I was sending in, and I think I go into some of the questions that I was asked as well. And I also have a video where I talk about the specific questions that I was asked at my Apple interview, if you're interested in that. Of course, it's like, wow, look at those sunglasses. Apple and Nokia interview questions. So going through all of the questions I could remember from my interviews at those two companies and how I answer them and so on. So you might find that interesting as well. Anyway, let's see. Ali says, Andreas reacts to Andreas from 2019. Indeed. It was a simpler time. And indeed, Felix, the webcam really did step up the quality. It's been a slow but gradual increase in production quality. And, it's still very bare bones around here, but I do feel like we've managed to improve the quality a little bit here and there. Oh, wait, YouTube is telling me that my stream bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. Am I looking okay to you guys? I'm not familiar with this error message. Maybe I have set something up in a bad way. Like, let me know if the stream is looking okay. All right, looks fine. Thank you, Matas. Ecoptic's asking, can I explain quickly how virtual and physical memory works? Sure. So I guess the easiest way to explain the distinction between physical and virtual memory is to think in terms of, let's see, let me open like a little text file or something. Let's get Pluma up in here. So physical memory, this is basically your like hardware RAM modules. So say that you have like 16 gigabytes of hardware RAM, like you've put 16 gigabytes of RAM into your machine. That means that you have 16 gigabytes of physical memory. And simplified, let's say that it's an address range that just starts at 0 and it goes all the way up to 16 gigabytes. Now in practice, there are holes in that range and they can be spread out a little bit. And also there can be contributions from RAM, but also from GPU memory and BIOS and stuff like that. But just imagine it as a single contiguous address range from 0 to 16 gigabyte. Whereas virtual memory is it's imaginary address space. So you have the full range of imaginary addresses, full range of 0 to 2 to the power of 64, I guess. If you are on 64-bit, or 2 to the power of 32 on 32-bit. And that's an address space that you control however you like. You can put anything you want in there, but what you put in there is that you say like, oh, this imaginary address in this whole range is going to map to a real tangible address in this range right here. So it's really just a mapping from one of these imaginary addresses to one of these real physical addresses. So you could have virtual address A0000 blah blah blah, and that might point to physical address 0, or it could put to physical address 1000, whatever. You set up those mappings yourself. That is what the page tables are for. They determine the mappings, and the main thing to know about is that the mappings are not on a byte by byte boundaries, but rather they are on page boundaries. So depending on your system page size, you would have typically 4 kilobytes of page size, but some modern systems actually use 16 kilobytes. So you have a slight increase in granularity, but by increasing granularity, you sort of reduce the size of metadata that's required to do these mappings. But yeah, that's essentially how it works and what those things are. You can, of course, read much more about them on Wikipedia or the OSDiv wiki, places like that. Or if you have more specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But that is, in general, what virtual and physical memory are. All right. Ecoptic saying that I have that Heisenberg look nowadays. Yeah, right. I actually started watching Breaking Bad a while ago, but I didn't make it past the 3rd episode because, I don't know, if I watched it many years ago and I still remembered everything, so it wasn't that fun. But it is a sweet look. Let's see. People complaining that the stream is slipping a bit. Okay, well, if it's looking okay, I'm not sure exactly what to do. If it is lagging, that would be bad. But hopefully it's going to be okay. Mr. Brax is asking if the webcam is using nearest neighbor scaling. I don't know, actually. I just set it up with OBS, so whatever OBS is doing. Andrew says, computer architecture with Dr. Kling. Yes, welcome to my class on computer architecture. Ask anything you want and I'll try to answer it. Vikas, sup? What is this video about, building operating system or using the operating system? This live stream is about SerenityOS. It's a recurring live stream that we do every Friday, and it's just an opportunity to ask any questions you want about SerenityOS, and we'll answer them. We'll look at code, try stuff out, dig into docs, whatever is necessary to figure out what people want to know. There's also a fair amount of just casual conversation that tends to happen, but we don't build things on these streams. Rather, we just chat, and I try to use them to, I guess, inform people and bring people up to speed. And also, if anybody's stuck on something, then this gives us a chance to learn about something together. Unlucky AF says, random question, how to switch VGA modes and what mode do you use for SerenityOS? How do you switch the VGA modes? So typically what you would do to switch VGA modes is you would use the BIOS. So of course there are a lot of problems with that once you switch into protected or long mode, but what is it? BIOS int 10, I think. And you would use int 10 AH0 to set up, this is like the classic way of setting VGA modes. But in our case, we don't use this. We use VESA. So VESA mode set, VESA video modes, yeah. So we use these to get a high resolution mode. And we actually rely on the bootloader doing this for us. We don't have our own code to call into VESA BIOS at the moment. And this actually means that we are not able to switch video modes on hardware at the moment. We can only switch video modes when you're running in QEMU or Box or VMware or something like that, because we know how to talk to the virtual graphics card, but we don't know how to, on most graphics cards, we don't know how to do that. But yeah, we use, by default, I'm using 1024 by 768. So you can see that here in our thingy. These are the video modes that this screen offers. Also, the fact that you can detach these combo box drop downs is just hilarious. We should probably not allow you to do this, but it's so funny. La la la. Anyway, yeah, so these are, and yeah, so this is actually in QEMU, we're using a virtual graphics card, right? So I can switch these, we support that. But if I were to run this on bare metal, that wouldn't work because we don't know how to do that. But it's just missing driver support, really. Let's see, Mr. Brack says, in OBS, on the right-click menu on the video capture device, wait, what were you saying? Capture device scale filtering. Okay, let me check that, actually. On my capture, scale filtering. Dun, 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 dun. Disable. Oh, I guess I can crank it up to bicubic. Okay, now we are in bicubic mode. Tell me if you like that. Oh, let me clear my throat. All right, there we go. Let's see. Felipe says, if someone wanted to add another build target for Serenity, i.e. ARM64, where would they start? So if you want to do ARM64, I would recommend getting in touch with the people who are already working on that. So we have a channel on Discord called AArch64, and they are sort of loosely coordinating work on that port. And they would be probably the best people to tell you what you need to do to add a new build target. I haven't added a build target to the system for a very long time myself, so my memory of that stuff is not fresh. But if I were to try and do it right now, I would probably just go in and duplicate everything that's specific to i686 or x86-64, make a copy of everything, and try to pair back, sort of figure out what's actually common and what is specific to the architecture, and work my way forward that way. So I guess I would start in the root CMake lists file, to be specific. Ecoptic says, I also recommend watching Better Call Saul. Talks about Saul's life before Breaking Bad happened. Yeah, I have seen most of that show, actually, and it was enjoyable. I liked, what was his name? Nacho? I liked Nacho a lot, and Mike. Cool characters. The literal definition of bruh says, thoughts on Plan 9/9 front. I have no thoughts on Plan 9 or 9 front. I have not used them enough to have a fully formed opinion, so I'm just not going to say anything. JJ says, the SerenityOS browser will avoid the user agent Y2K-like bug since the version doesn't need to be 3 digits yet. Yeah, that's right. But oops, we already have issues with our user agent string, though. I was just testing some random stuff earlier today. Also, why does the keyboard not work? Let's try that again. If you go to myuseragent.com, I think that was it. And let me actually crank the resolution back up here. Oh, crashy. Things are not always super stable around here, but we do our best. Okay, maybe it was not myuseragent.com. My -user-agent? Okay, well, anyway, the thing that I'm trying to reveal is that websites are already struggling to understand our user agent. Web content does not exist. Okay, I have definitely done something to the system here. Let me rebuild the disk image, and then we will maybe have some success. Let's see. Because says, did you build this operating system? I started the project in 2018, but a lot of people have helped out since then, of course. There's now hundreds of people who are working on it, but yes, I did do the original system and spent the first 6 months or so all by myself, and then people started joining because they found out how much fun I was having and they wanted to be a part of it. Space Dance says, biggest missing piece for Vulkan support. I have no idea. I have never looked at Vulkan support, so I have no clue what would go into supporting it. But I guess I would keep, if you're interested in that, I would keep an eye on what they're currently doing with VGL, which is support for the virtualized GPU stuff that you can get through like VMware and emulators, like offer you a virtualized abstraction on top of your hardware GPU that in theory will allow us to do GPU accelerated stuff within Serenity on Linux. Let's see. Mati says, what was the biggest mistake you made during SerenityOS development? I don't know. I don't really keep track. I mean, I make mistakes all the time, but I don't think I could tell you one was bigger than the other. They're all just mistakes, and we have a very incremental culture in this project where mistakes are just part of it, and we sort of come back to everything and fix stuff as we go. So I couldn't tell you a favorite mistake. I don't remember them well enough. Let's see. Bluta says, Serenity on Raspberry Pi would be awesome. Sure. If anybody's interested in that, there are other people just like you, and you can join them and help out. Tib says, what are C object and C object abstract? So C object and C object abstract, I'll show you what those are. Core object. These are basically little macros that you put at the start of any class that inherits from core object. So C object and C object abstract right here. What they do is that currently they just expand to a class name getter, and they also expand to a construction helper. And these are used for debugging mostly, just so that we can have a consistent way to tell like what is the name of this class that I have right here. If you have something that's like a pointer to a base class, but you want to find out what kind of class it is, this offers a quick way to get at the class name. But the construction helpers are the ones that we use almost everywhere in the system. So we don't want you using new directly on these objects. So we tend to hide the constructors and make them private. And the reason for that is that these are reference counted objects. So reference counted objects require special care when constructing them because they start out with a reference count of 1. And if you just knew a core object, then you have an object with a reference count of 1, but it's not managed by a smart pointer. So we want to hide that and instantiate this construct helper function instead that gives you the newly constructed object wrapped in a smart pointer that all the reference counting is already taken care of, and we can't screw up and accidentally cause a leak or use after free. That's basically why. And I should probably write down that answer because I feel like I've answered it many times, and it's something that everybody needs to know about if they're working on core objects and stuff. Milan says, does YouTube have fees on Super Chat? Wrapped in a Super Chat. Thank you very much for the Super Chat. Really appreciate that. Yes, YouTube does have some fees on Super Chat. They take fees on Super Chats. They take fees on channel memberships. So something to be aware of, but I appreciate the Super Chat. Most of it still goes to me. So and even if only 1% of it went to me, I would still be very grateful that you would donate something. So thank you, Milan. All right. Hello, Daniel. Making use of those sweet emojis. LOL player says, is there a chance we will see coding live sessions in the future? It's not really something that I would like to do. I don't think I would enjoy it, and I wouldn't be so productive if I have to monitor chat at the same time. I feel like I have a very good thing going with the super focused development videos that I make, and I don't really feel the need to branch out into like casual stream development, but that's what I feel right now. We'll see. I don't know how I'll feel in the future. Maybe it will seem super interesting. Let's see. Jeje would also like to run Serenity on the Raspberry Pi. See, lots of people interested. Now y'all just need to get together and talk about it. Piers says, strange, my messages are not coming through the stream, but I see your message right here. So there are a bunch. Yeah, I've seen messages not showing up in the chat every now and then, and a common thing is if you put a URL or anything that looks like a URL, then YouTube can be very, very picky about those messages and just yeet them before they have a chance of showing up. So that's something to be aware of, and I think probably they filter on all kinds of things to automatically remove comments, but that's not something I have any control over. I don't have any word filters or anything like that on the channel, so any problem that you're having is really with YouTube. Vikas says, this is like min Windows XP. This is cool. I am way too far in OS development, but I would love to develop apps for this operating system. Please include JavaScript as native language, please. We do have JavaScript support in this operating system. We have our very own JavaScript engine that you will find in there if you look around. Let's see, Alex says, no question, just wanted to share that the root cause of the bug I was debugging at work yesterday was a CPU errata, where the CPU crashes if you store too fast in a loop. That sounds like it probably took you a while to debug. Good stuff. But you found it, so that's kick-ass. Good work. Let's see, there's a super chat right here. Oh, wait, no, that's not a super chat. That's Matas, who's actually joining the channel as a member. Oh, maybe we should call it something, since we have the golden yak. It's like you're joining the golden yak herd or something. Welcome to the golden yak herd. Anyway, Niaz says, do you always prefer monorepos, or is this only something that makes sense on SerenityOS? It depends on what you're doing. I think if you are building something like we're doing with no dependencies, I don't think it makes any sense to split it up into a bunch of different repositories or different packages when we can just build everything together all in one place. But if I were building a component for, for a Linux desktop or something like that, or a command line utility for something, I wouldn't put that in a repo together with everything else I'm working on. I would put it in its own repo. So I think it's a case by case thing. But here, since we're building a complete system, I think it makes perfect sense to build it as a single cohesive unit. Let's see. James Pulio says, any interesting, hopefully funny stories you have from working at Apple or Nokia? If I recall correctly, you did a lot of profiling work on WebKit. Any times you saw something and went, why is it like that? Yes, about 1,000 times probably. That has definitely happened many times. And there are definitely some silly stories. I have some of the first car videos I made on my channel actually are like me telling silly stories. Let me see. What were they called? Commute talk, WebKit stories, something like that. A childish WebKit story and the imaginary WebKit Blink performance wars. Classic old videos. Man, and there's like 200 views on these things. And to me, these are pretty funny stories. I'm just gonna link them in the thing here if somebody wants to watch them later, because it's like 10-minute stories, so I don't want to just retell them here and take up all that time. So I would recommend those. But to answer your more specific question, like, yes, there's been tons of stuff I've found while profiling WebKit and profiling Qt, profiling other parts of the Apple software stack. And I think some of the, I don't know that anything was like super egregious. It was, usually there was more like very surprising things, or when you find something that's totally unnecessary, like you find out that something is slow because something totally pointless is taking up a lot of time. That tends to be kind of funny. At least when you're in the moment and you're sitting there, you've been working on something for hours, just profiling, trying to track something down, and it turns out it's like the dumbest, stupidest thing, and it's not something really smart or clever, or where you have to use your brain to come up with a good solution. You can just like, oh, let's just not do that, and then it's 10 times faster. It's like tension relief from that, and you just laugh it off. But nothing immediately comes to mind, so I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna have to come back to that and maybe make a video specifically about this, because it's a fun topic to talk about, like surprising performance discoveries and stuff like that. So let me actually see if I can come back to that in a video format. And then we had a super chat from Fredrik. Oh wait, did I miss a super chat? No, this one here is a super chat or donation. I'm not sure which one, but thank you very much, Matas, for the 20 euro donation. Super appreciate that. And Frederick as well, saying thank you for this great channel and community. It has inspired me to start coding for actual fun for the first time in years, and I'm having the most fun I've had in a long time. That's freaking great. I'm so glad to hear that, Frederick. If there's one thing I would love to achieve with this YouTube channel is to wake this thing up in other people, like this love for programming, because I hear from a lot of people that, oh, I used to love programming so much, but I've been doing it as my job for so long and I sort of lost that spark. But you can get that spark back, and it's so much fun when somebody says that they found a way to reconnect with this amazing hobby of ours. So thank you, Frederick, for the super chat, and thank you, Matas, as well. Let me see. Let me just catch up here because I am falling behind. Benoit says, do you enjoy building this project in C++, or are you sometimes interested in using another, either for fun, curiosity, or performance? I enjoy building it in C++, but the contrary to popular belief, I'm primarily using C++ because I'm the most productive with C++. If I were more productive with something else, I would probably use something else. I'm not like married to C++ or like in love with it or something like that. It's a fine language. I enjoy using it, and I'm very, very productive with it. So that's really why I use it. But I would be happy to replace it if there's something else where I can do the same thing, but more productively. Let's see. Piers says, based on the community roundup and what you've seen on Discord, whose work has been exciting you? Oh, that's kind of funny because almost everyone's work tends to excite me. Like whenever I look at stuff that anybody else is doing, I get hyped up every time. And it doesn't matter which part of the system somebody's working on. Like if I see somebody like making a new font, or somebody's like reordering some items in a menu and now it looks way nicer and everything looks like correctly organized, or if somebody's like adding a new filter to the pixel paint program, or anything really, I just get hyped up because to me it's so exciting that people are choosing to spend their time working on this stuff, because, you know, everybody could just choose to do something else instead. But the fact that people come here and do this, I don't know, it's just, it just gets to me. And actually, when I was making the last community showcase video, I have to admit I got a little bit emotional because it's just so heartwarming to me to sit there and see like all these little videos that people send me of like, oh, here's something I'm doing with SerenityOS, and oh man, it's just it's so cool that people are choosing to do this. I feel so honored, you know? Anyway, yeah, so the answer is really that I'm just really excited about everything that everybody's doing. And I often have to sort of pace myself to not get super involved in everything that everybody's doing, but instead I try to keep some distance so that people have the freedom to try things out for themselves and discover what works and what doesn't. And I don't want to micromanage anybody. Sometimes I can't resist, but I try not to micromanage anything or anybody. And I feel like that's going okay. I hope that people feel like they're having the chance to develop code in Serenity, like in their own way, in their own pace, but it still fits into the system as a whole. I don't want to breathe down everybody's neck, I guess. Let's see. Philip says, loving the browser hacking videos. Yes, me too. I really enjoy those. Milan says, send URLs in super chat. YouTube likes fees. That might work. I don't know. We will have to try that out. Yeah, Jeje says here, back to the user agents. What was the issue you tried to show? Okay, let me just see if I can. What's my user agent? What is my browser? Okay, yeah, so here's one, my-user-agent.com. Let's try to get that thing going. I don't know what was going on with with my disk image last time. So my user agent.com. Let me show you the problem that we have on these pages. So this one correctly identifies that I'm on Ubuntu with Firefox, whatever version. I'm using Gecko. But if we go here with Serenity, we can see that they read the user agent just fine, but they identify us as Gecko. And this is a common problem I've seen on many websites. And our user agent string does contain Gecko, but it says not KHTML nor Gecko. And the very last part here is the rendering engine, but they are not picking that up correctly. Or at least, I wonder if we're doing something wrong. Because typically with the web, it's like there's the specification and then there's what the other browsers do. And really, while it would be nice to just follow the spec, you in practice, you have to do what other browsers do. So we may have to reorganize our UA string a little bit so that it doesn't get picked up as Gecko. But I do like this UA a lot because I like how it says not KHTML nor Gecko. But it seems like it's screwing up user agent heuristics around the web. So it's something that we need to investigate. The meaning of haste says, how does SerenityOS load/unload device drivers? Simple. We don't. Everything is built into the kernel, and we don't do module loading or unloading at the moment. We used to have dynamic module loading, but nobody maintained it, so we just got rid of it. And we just build all the modules we need into the kernel instead. Maybe in the future we would go back to having dynamic modules, but at the moment we don't have them or use them. Akarin says, are there GUI bindings for JavaScript? No, there are not. There was a project a long time ago now that Linus did where he was messing with bindings, JavaScript bindings for other libraries. And it was a sweet project, but it's pretty old by now. It's 2 years ago. So would need a big refresh if somebody wanted to pick that up. JJ says, will the browser engine support various JavaScript libraries? Of course. We're going to support all of them probably. Just earlier today, I was screwing around with the old Dromeo JavaScript test, and I noticed that you can actually go on here and, okay, well, you can't actually go on there, but we can maybe get into some subtest. And these tests are actually kind of sort of running. Kind of. Oh, did I hang the machine? Well, maybe I did, yeah. Okay, well, not the most impressive demo given all the crashing, but the point I was trying to make was that we can actually load a lot of JavaScript libraries already. A lot of the old ones just work, like jQuery and stuff like that, but more modern ones like React tend to work as well. And recently I was looking at some issues in Ember.js, and it's just something that as our JavaScript engine improves and as our browser implementation improves, JavaScript libraries tend to just kind of start working. And of course, there will be issues, compatibility issues and glitches and stuff, as we do have bugs. But since we're aiming to support the web platform, that includes JavaScript libraries. Ashwin says, hey, Andreas, how are you? I'm fine. Thank you for asking. How are you? Do you think that developing a browser needs as much focus as developing the operating system itself, excluding the browser? Yes, I think so. I think, I mean, my view is really that the browser is sort of the top layer of a modern operating system, because nobody wants an operating system that doesn't have a browser. It's not practical to use. And since I'm trying to build something to use, I need to put a browser on it. And in some ways, like you can almost think of it as like everything else, or a lot of the other stuff in the operating system sort of exists in service of the browser, because the more and more stuff is done in browsers, right? Like more and more of everything you do every day with your computer happens in the browser through interactions with various websites. And I think at least for many people, they use way more websites than they use applications, right? And it kind of puts an operating system like Serenity in an interesting place, because in the past, application compatibility would have been a large issue for a new operating system. But I think nowadays it's more important that you can run websites than it is that you can run applications. Like if you can run like Office or Google Docs in the browser, who cares if they run natively, right? So I do think that developing a browser absolutely needs as much, or maybe even more focus than developing the operating system excluding the browser. But at the same time, I happen to consider those part of one thing. Like the browser is part of the operating system, in my view. Somebody else might feel very differently about this. But that's not to say that everybody has to work on the browser or care about it. But I do think that the browser is really the application layer of a modern operating system. So it does need a lot of work, and it's a complex surface with very wide requirements. So there's a lot of work to do. Let's see. Oh, Vikas with the super chat saying, if you guys can make UI and app development as easy as web development, like we can code UI in HTML, CSS, or XML, or CSS, or something like that, I am 1000% sure more and more devs will contribute. That is entirely possible. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Really appreciate that. It's entirely possible that more people would contribute, but at the same time, we don't necessarily want more people to contribute. We want people who feel passionate about what this is to contribute. I never wanted to gain more users or gain more developers just for the purpose of increasing the number, right? I want people who feel that this is something awesome. I want them to find it. I want them to have fun with it. But I don't want to change what it is specifically for the purpose of attracting more people, whether users or developers. So I do think that like native development, like C++ interfaces and stuff like that, the fact that everything is really nice and fast, I think that's something that we want to hold on to. We don't want to give that up and trade it in for like more convenient web-based UI toolkit just so that we can have more people work on it. But at least that's where I am now. But we'll see what happens in the future. Like if something becomes extremely fast, then it might make more sense to switch to using that for UI. At the moment, it would be way slower, so that's not really acceptable. With the super chat. Thank you very much. Chai is giving into peer pressure with the cat dog right here. Interesting. I'm not sure what peer pressure you're referring to, but I really appreciate the super chat. Oh, wait, where did this come from? Was this at the bottom or at the top? Did I just miss that? Oh man, there are so many of these things happening. I can't keep up. Jay Vega with the super chat says, thanks for all the work you've done in SerenityOS and for creating such a great community. Very happy to create the community for sure. I think this is one of the nicest things that I've ever been a part of, and I'm really glad that other people feel that it's something good as well. So thank you for the super chat and for the nice words. And Vikas with the super chat, I think as well. I think this is a super chat. I can never tell, like if there are no words, I'm not sure, but I guess it's a super chat. So thank you for that very much. Let me just, man, I am just so disoriented with the chat. Sorry about that. Let's see. Vishnu said, how did you spread the word about Serenity and get contributors other than YouTube, of course? Let me show you where most of the original burst of people came from. Dun, dun, dun. I made this post right here in the OS Dev subreddit, and that got a little bit of attention, so not super much. It's a niche subreddit, but that was sort of where the first main burst of attention came from, because I think somebody saw this post and then reposted it to Hacker News, and then I had 3 videos on my channel or something like that, and suddenly 1,000 people watched my very first SerenityOS update video, and then from then on it sort of grew organically. I kept posting videos and posting them to Reddit sometimes, and posting on Twitter about it, but just sort of making a continuous stream of content is really the main thing that has helped me spread the word about Serenity. And I think that's really the main piece of advice I would give to anybody who's trying to grow an open source project, is to not just write the code and imagine that people are going to discover it and show up and want to help out, but rather to take advantage of making a content stream. So whatever kind of content you like to make, you don't have to make videos like I do. You can write blog posts, or you can write tweets or a newsletter or anything, but some kind of content stream, so that there's a continuous trickle of updates about your project, and find some way to make them interesting. And that, I think, that will attract people. If what you do is interesting, then it will attract people. But it is hard. It's a lot of work. I've done a ton of work on this stuff, so I don't pretend like it's easy. I have, I don't know, more than 800 videos on this channel. I don't know how many exactly, but I put a lot of time into it, and I'm sure I could have had way higher numbers if I had allocated that time differently, but I try to make it into something that would be interesting to me if I saw it. So that's the kind of content that we get. But yeah, my recommendation for sure would be to make some kind of content continuously. I don't program in CPP says, do you use multiple monitors? Yes, I do actually. Look, I have OBS right over here, for example. Let's see, Vikas says, in future people will be debating which operating system to choose for their desktop, Windows, Linux, Mac, or SerenityOS. Well, we'll see. Keyboard G says, the biggest optimizations for me end up being when a developer spent a lot of time optimizing a process that shouldn't exist in the first place. Yeah, that's something that happens quite a bit. And definitely, it's funny when you see something that was heavily optimized, but it turns out to just not be important, and there was no need to put all that effort into optimizing it. I have done that so many times myself, spending all this time trying to make something that I believe to be important faster, and then I learned much later that it didn't matter at all. Let's see. James Puglia says, I'll give my own response. Oh, and the interesting performance problems thing. Right, so I was debugging why we overran a vector-like type in a for loop before I realized someone didn't add a less than check and simply checked if the size was truthy. I was grumpy. Yeah, it's funny, you can tell a bit about yourself when you react to these things. When you're frustrated and you're looking for an answer to something for a long time, you're debugging something, and then you find out that the problem was caused by somebody else maybe, or by you. And it's interesting what kind of reaction you get. I know I've had like the whole spectrum of reactions. Like sometimes I would get so irritated at another person that I would have this desire or urge to lash out at them. I would have to calm down. And other times I just feel like, oh, we all make mistakes. I don't know. It really, it's strange what happens to the brain when you're under that frustration pressure. But of course, it is important to hold back on whatever that initial reaction is in case it is a negative or unpleasant one, and just take a moment to calm down, you know? Ecoptic says, have you ever contributed to Linux or some similar project? I have not contributed to Linux, the kernel, but I have tons of code in various open source projects. WebKit and Qt I did professionally, but I also have many patches in KDE, for example. That was a big one I worked on a lot. And I have small patches and random projects all over the place. I think something I worked on a bunch last year and the year before was I did a bunch of stuff for libqmi, which is mobile broadband library for that you can use on Linux to use like LTE modems, 5G modems, stuff like that. If you go in here, you can find me doing stuff, adding commands and such. Yes, I have contributed to many open source projects. Let's see. Barrow099 says, hi, maybe you already answered this, but I couldn't find it. Why is the text in your commit message editor is half yellow, half white? Why is it? Is it? Let's make a commit. See what you mean. Half yellow, half white. Hello there. I am a commit message. Do you mean like why is this part yellow and why is this part not yellow? I guess if so, that means that this is the subject line. So the first line is yellow and then the rest is probably gray. But I'm not sure exactly if that's what you're asking about. I think it's just a separation of subject versus body or something like that. Let's see. Vishnu says Serenity on Raspberry Pi will make it easy to run on bare metal. Yeah, sure, that would be fun to do. If somebody wants to work on that, I would certainly encourage it. Let's see. Pierre with the well, hello friends. Well, hello Pierre. Nice to see you here. Nice to see all the gold yaks indeed. The Vanok says, hi Andreas, how are you doing? I notice you seem to have a shortcut / function to resize windows quickly by dragging across them or whatever. What is that and how does it work? So on Ubuntu, I just hold Alt and then use the right mouse button to resize or the left mouse button to move the window around. So it's really just holding Alt down. Depending on which window manager you're using, you might have a different key. So some of them use Alt, some use Control Alt, some use the Super or Window key. On Serenity, we use the Super key. So here, if I am in here, then I hold down the Super key and I do this, and it resizes. And I can click or drag anywhere on the window. It doesn't matter where. For moving. And then for resizing, what matters is which corner are you nearest. So like if I'm resizing, the resize is initiated from the corner I'm closest to, basically. Abhishek says, have you moved to a new place you mentioned some time ago? No, we have not moved to a new place yet. We still need to find a new place. It's very, we're very slow at this. Keep looking, but not finding the perfect thing. Let's see. Chrome, Valeriano says, Chrome is deprecating user agent string with something called client hints. They have an article talking about it and it seems interesting. I can't post the link because YouTube. Yeah, that's very nice that they're trying to deprecate it, but like in reality, the web is just, it's really hard to deprecate anything on the web because old websites stick around for very long sometimes, and we just kind of have to keep them working. But if the less people rely on user agent strings, the better. So I am always happy to see any kind of effort to disincentivize using that, or to incentivize using something else that is obviously very nice. So we should probably look into supporting whatever that technology is as well. Andrew Castor says, developing in C++ is way easier than web development. I know how to develop in C++ and I don't know anything about web dev. Well, that sounds downright subjective, Andrew. But sure. Let's see. Oops. Tobias says, well, hello, Kling. Hello to you, too. Oh, wait. Dang it. Okay, I have to catch up with the super chats. From Matthew. Hello, Matthew. Says, joining the super chat bandwagon. It's my first office hours stream, but I'm a huge fan of the browser hacking videos, especially for the Discord page. Thank you very much for the super chat, Matthew. And I'm glad you've been enjoying the super chat, not the super chat, the browser hacking videos. I really enjoy making those. It's obviously a passion of mine to work on browsers, and the recent ones that I did where I mix browser hacking with performance analysis is just, I guess that's really my comfort zone almost. So it's fun to be there, but I don't want to spend all my time in my comfort zone, so I do have to step out eventually. But I'm glad that the fun translates into enjoyable videos. Lenny with another super chat. Hey, Lenny, how's it going? Lenny says, thanks for caring about code quality and best practices. Being the code janitor while I hunt for things to move to compile time has been fun. Yeah, it's been a lot of interesting patches coming from you, Lenny. Like, there are so many things that we do at runtime which we can totally do at compile time, and just seeing those incremental patches, like moving stuff to compile time, I love that. And it always makes me curious, like, what else can we do at compile time? And it's really nice to see how C++ as a language is evolving to allow you to do more and more things at compile time. Because, or like, I mean, you could always generate code, right? But now that the language offers facilities so that you can express your intent in the code itself instead of through a code generator, that is super kick-ass. So I'm excited to see what comes next in that whole department, both from the language and from you. But yeah, thank you for working on that stuff. That's so cool. Let me see, where the heck was I? Miko007 says, how big is the browser currently, like in megabytes? I'm always baffled that Chrome is like half a gigabyte for what is basically a 2D renderer with various parsing capabilities. Well, that is a drastic underestimation of what a browser is. There's a lot more stuff than just a 2D renderer and various parsers. But regardless, let's take a look at our browser size. So the UI of the browser currently in my build here is 2 megabytes. And then let's look at what is libweb. Libweb is a symlink, apparently. All right, so we're looking at 48 megabytes. But keep in mind, I do have debug symbols packed in here, so probably substantially less without debug symbols. And then we also have libjs coming in at 29 megabytes. So pretty hefty libraries already. Wait, do I have strip installed? I don't have strip. Let's see, find name, libweb, so Serenity. How big is that? That's 48 megs, but what if I were to strip that? Just strip out the debug, right? I can't. Oh, wait, I have to use my tool chain. And if I strip out that stuff, it goes down to 14 megabytes. So yeah, so it's not quite 47 megs without debug symbols, 48 megs, but it's 14 megs. Still, 14 megabytes of code, quite chunky. Not quite half a gig though. Yes, and then, you know, we have to do the same for libjs and the browser UI and all the other libraries that go into it. But it's still pretty small in comparison. Let's see. Crystal Rope says, hello, while browsing the code, I found that some files have copyright header for Apple. Do these still mean anything, or were they forgotten? I think there are like 3 of them, or 2 maybe. Yeah, so these are, basically I just brought something with me from WebKit that I wanted to use, and I did that twice, I think, and I wanted to be a good boy about it, so I brought the copyright with me as well, even though these things have changed substantially and they don't really look like the originals. At least this one doesn't look much like the original anymore. I still wanted to keep that because it's nice to trace that lineage. And you know, I worked on a lot of things in WebKit, and some of them were very, very useful to me while bringing up the system in the beginning. And at the same time, though, like, there's nothing stopping us from replacing those utility headers someday if you want to do a clean room implementation or something. Anyway, let's see. Pierce with the repost saying, is there any improvements to the project management side of SerenityOS that you would like to see? I have noticed that there's quite a backlog of PRs getting stale. I mean, there's probably lots of improvements that can be done, but I think the fact that pull requests go stale really just means that nobody cares enough about them to get them in. Like, that's kind of the reality of that. If you have something that is important that it goes in, you will probably drive that to go in. And if you stop moving a PR along, then it will eventually time out and go stale. And it's really not feasible, in my view, for the project to care about one-off contributions from people who don't care enough to like rebase them or fix lint issues and stuff like that. Only in some cases, like, somebody has an important bug fix where they make a PR with an important bug fix, but then they disappear. They don't take care of the pull request, and then I or somebody else will put in the effort of cleaning up the PR and merging it. But for stuff that's like, somebody shows up and they want to do something and they put a PR in the queue and then they just disappear and don't take care of the PR, but it's not an important feature to anybody else, those are just going to time out probably. I mean, that's just the reality of how we run this project, and I'm okay with that. I think at the same time, like, project management wise, there are probably lots of ways that we can improve, and it's something that we try to do incrementally as we discover the need for things. I feel like I talked about this last time in the last office hours, but for example, our Discord server, we started out with no rules on the Discord server, and then we sort of discovered over time which rules were necessary, because we kept having like specific issues. So we just created rules organically for those issues as they came up, and by doing that, we've ended up with a very solid set of rules that seem to fit the project really well. And I kind of think of project management in the same way, that we just take it day by day, and when we discover that something is not working, then we look for patches to improve it, I guess. But I don't have any drastic changes that I would like to make at the moment, and I'm happy with the stale marking system that we have, because it's really just garbage collecting PRs that people abandon. So but you know, if somebody has a good suggestion for how to improve PRQ throughput, then I am interested, definitely. Slendy says, I think the current UI/UX designing system is great since it provides an easy-to-use interface to what we already have. I don't know if that was in response to something else, but I agree. I think it's very, very nice the way that our GML code works in the system. Man, I am so far behind here. Let's see. Blitzpark says, is there any concept of a domain-specific operating system? Like, I don't want all the features of Unix in a smartwatch or TV, so what should be the minimal things that can ensure an operating system running on those? Yes, there are absolutely domain-specific operating systems, but since we're building a desktop operating system here, it's going to be not entirely domain specialized. It's going to be general purpose. But there are absolutely domain-specific operating systems. Like in any small device, you'll find domain-specific operating system. Like you could argue that a phone operating system has become general purpose, but to an extent, they are very much domain-specific because they have a lot of phone-specific stuff and handheld device-specific things, right? Andrew with a good answer here also saying that you should look up real-time operating systems that are used for phone systems, spaceships, air traffic control systems. Yes, and also elevators and cars and all kinds of things. Let's see. Niaz says, I can also recommend posting on Reddit. A lot of people are eager to check out new projects. Yeah, absolutely. Also a subreddit, by the way, that I was using earlier. I don't post much there anymore, but occasionally I would post. But in the beginning, I was posting every single video I made to the Watch People Code subreddit, which is just a place where you can share live coding streams and live coding videos. And they seemed to like what I was doing, so I kept posting my videos there for a while. But at some point I felt like I was flooding it, and my channel was kind of getting views on its own, so I didn't want to spam here anymore. I wanted to give other people a chance to be seen, so I kind of scaled back. But I did post here the other day. Yeah, see, there I am. But now I post maybe like once a month or something like that. But yes, I can recommend that one for anybody who's making programming videos, for sure. Oh, James L. joining the Yak Herd. Welcome to the Yak Herd indeed. The Yak Herd. And Vikas with the super chat saying, one day I was willing to sacrifice my brain cells and started coding in assembly. Unfortunately, after Hello World, I ran out of brain cells. Well, maybe it's time to try again. It's not terribly hard to get your head around assembly if you sit down and make an effort to engage with it. It just it requires a bit of patience. That's true. Thank you for the super chat. Vishnu says, yes, this is a super chat with the super chat. All right, thank you for confirming. That is very nice. Piers with the super chat says, adopt the Yak Fund. Yeah, so Piers actually hooked me up. I'm still trying to organize this, but Piers actually hooked me up with Adopt the Yak. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. So I am adopting a yak. Thanks to Piers. But they don't ship to Sweden, so I have to ship it through somebody helping me in the United States. But yes, you can adopt a yak through the heritageyak.com, and you get like a little feel-good care package, and you also get to help out, I guess, yak preservation and genome research and stuff like that. So if somebody else wants to adopt a yak, check that out. And thank you very much, Piers, for helping me adopt a yak. I really appreciate that. Man, I am behind again, damn it. Did I say thank you to Vishnu for confirming? Thank you, Vishnu, for confirming the super chat. Oh man, I am so distracted or so disoriented here today. Blitzpark says, how about writing an operating system with a garbage collected language like Golang? Oh, I'm sure you could. You could definitely make an operating system with a garbage collected language. But you have to be careful with your garbage collector because they can be a bit annoying. If you have to stop in the middle of something important and collect garbage, that can be very unfortunate if you are right in the middle of some time-sensitive thing, and then now you have to pause for 50 milliseconds to GC. But with a more sophisticated garbage collector, that might be a smaller pause and whatever, but there are concerns. I think there are examples of people doing garbage collected kernels and garbage collected systems, though. For me personally, I'm not super interested in that. I like the C++ type system. Now that we have smart pointers, I really enjoy the type system in C++. Nuffly says, what exactly is a fly string? I saw you using it a ton, but I couldn't really figure out what it is from the source code. Okay, this is another one I need to put in the FAQ because it's so common. But fly string is a deduplicated string. So it's a string that is guaranteed to only exist in one copy in the program. So if you copy a fly string, they're all just pointing to the same character buffer. Whereas if you copy a string, it might be multiple copies of the string. Fly string guarantees that they all share the same internal string buffer. And the big benefit of that is that you can compare two fly strings by just comparing the pointers to the characters. And you don't have to walk the whole strings. You don't have to walk two strings to compare two fly strings. You just compare the pointer and you're good. And that happens because they are deduplicated. And of course, they also use less storage. If you used to have 5 strings and now you make them a fly string and they're all the same string, now you just use the space for one of them. So it is nice for that. The downside is that there's a bit of housekeeping. You have to keep a hash table of all of the fly strings. That's how the sharing is implemented. So in flystring.cpp, you can find that we have a hash table here that just keeps track of all of the fly strings in the program at the moment. And if you try to instantiate a fly string by passing another string to its constructor, it will look up that string in the fly string table and insert it if necessary. Otherwise, reuse an existing fly string rather than the string that you're passing in. So it's really a deduplicated, unique, or interned string. There are many different names for this concept. We call them fly string because they are an implementation of the flyweight pattern for strings. So flyweight strings, fly strings. Hope that helps. Let's see, YeppyDev says, is there any reason you stopped using QCreator, or do you just prefer /think cline is better? I stopped using QCreator because I wanted to try something else to see if I could have a more productive experience. And the first thing I tried was cline, and it turned out that it was really awesome. I really enjoy using it, and I've been using it ever since. And I think the trouble with QCreator is that it's a pretty decent IDE, but it's made by a small team, and QCreator is just one little thing that they do at Qt, whereas cline is made by a lot of people who are just only focusing on making a really good IDE, and as a result, you can kind of feel that the level of polish is so much higher in cline, and it's been a really, really productive piece of software for me, at least. I've really enjoyed using it. Ecoptic says, Andreas, what is your unprofessional opinion on Rust? I've seen you borrowed some Rust ideas and used them in C++. Also, did you know Linux is planning to use it as a second language in the kernel? I don't have an opinion about Rust, professional or unprofessional. We have borrowed, if you want to call it that, we are using the same error propagation style as Rust, yes. But it's also similar to Zig, so it's not really unique to Rust. It's just, I guess, more modern languages are using a different style of error propagation, and we're kind of borrowing from more modern languages. But I don't have an opinion about Rust, because I haven't written enough Rust to have a worthwhile opinion. And I think I know I often say that, but it's really important to me to make that point that I really haven't used it enough to have an opinion that you should care about. And I would recommend to anybody to be really careful with listening to the opinions of people with very little experience or small experience with something, because it's very easy to come up with an opinion and shape it in such a way that people will listen to you. Like, you can be negative and crap on things and get a lot of attention that way, but that's not helping you in any way to listen to somebody spout off like unthoughtful opinions, let's say. So I'm very careful with giving opinions on things that I don't know well enough. And for me personally, like, I've set this limit that if I wrote 100,000 lines of code in a language, then I will have an opinion on it. But before that, I'll just keep quiet. Scott Monroe says, what's been your experience using GitHub for Serenity? My experience is limited using it for real projects, but it's frustrating for me. Code review in particular is rough. It's been a good experience on the whole, I would say. The project management features that we need for Serenity are all there. And code review, there are a bunch of little issues that I would like to see improved in the code review system, and I have brought them up with GitHub, but they're not famous for like publicly responding to issues and feature requests and stuff. But I'm doing my part and making feature requests and reporting bugs and stuff to GitHub. I've also spoken to GitHub. I've had contact with GitHub internally to talk about some issues, and nothing super interesting has come of that yet, but we'll see in the future. It would be really nice if they would listen to some of our concerns, because we are we are happy users of the platform, and there is some small changes they could make that would improve the experience for us quite a lot, I think. But overall, I'm happy with it for sure. I don't think there's any other Git hosting product at the moment that I would rather use. Like, I've also used GitLab extensively, but I think GitHub is a nicer product at the moment. Kook says, does Serenity have a dark mode for the system UI? Well, kind of. We have themes, and themes know whether or not they are dark, so you can kind of think of it as that. If you switch to like Groovebox Dark, for example, now you are in a dark mode. And in theory, if you go to a website that respects color theme, yeah, check it out. It actually picks up the fact that we are in a dark mode theme and makes Linus's website dark as well. That's pretty cool. YuppieDev says, I think there are some documentation for GML. I don't think so, not yet, although I did see somebody working on that a while ago. Let's see. Unlucky AF says, random question again, how to set the VGA mode and where are the video memory addresses? I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'm sure that if you read this article, then you will be informed about that. I know that you can set them through BIOS calls, but if you are in protected mode, you can't just easily call the BIOS, since the BIOS will be 16-bit code. So there are some different strategies where you can like drop out of protected mode temporarily, like drop back into 16 mode, call the BIOS, and then go back into protected mode. There are some things like that. I know Linux has done that in the past, at least. I don't know if they still do. It's an option. It's hairy, but it's possible. Ideally, we would just interface directly with the card, but then that's an entirely different thing than VESA. But yeah, check out the page on os.wiki about that, and you'll probably find what you need to know. Let's see. Slendy with joining the Yak Herd. Welcome to the Golden Yak Herd. Nice to have you here. And Milan says, I didn't know there's an Adopt a Yak fund that must be supported. Adding 5 years to the Adopt a Yak fund. Thank you very much. Oh, and Matthew Purnell says, Yak adoption successful. Man, I wonder if they're going to get a bunch of programmers suddenly adopting yaks. That would be a bit funny. It's a fine animal, though. Beautiful. Okay, I am falling behind again, losing myself. Let's see. James Pulio says, regarding not caring for your pull request, one of my pull requests that comes to mind is A213. It's a libtls/libhttp bug I had on logom and tried to fix it, but didn't properly. Thankfully, Ali is the best and came along. 8213. 8213. What was that? By the way, I don't know if people are aware of this, but I have turned off my GitHub notifications a long time ago. So if you're @ing me on GitHub ever, then I'm not noticing that. Unrelated to this specifically, but I just had to turn them off because I was getting hundreds and hundreds of them, and it was just unmanageable. Let's see. Oh, this was a while ago. Okay. And we closed this with Ali pushing something. Okay, I'm not sure exactly. I don't have all the context needed here to make a meaningful comment, but I guess what you're saying is that like you tried to fix something, but you didn't know how to fix it nicely. So Ali showed up and moved it along and got a nice fix in. So that is awesome. That's also something that happens sometimes, like somebody finds a bug and they try to fix it, and the fix isn't necessarily like the right fix, or it's kind of a clumsy fix or something. And then we try to, of course, we want to try to do it nicely. But sometimes, people don't have the patience. Like if you come up with a fix and you spend 5 minutes on something, maybe you don't want to spend the 2-3 hours it would take to like fix it in a nice way or in the correct way. We do have PRs like that go stale every now and then, and it's also something that's like, it's a reality of running a project. I'm not saying that your PR was like that. I'm just saying that it's something that we do get, like PRs with where somebody put like a small amount of time into something and they're not really interested in putting the bigger amount of time necessary. Let's see. Niaz says, thanks for the recommendation. I will now post my stuff there. Yes, post your stuff to watch people code, and people will watch you code. James L says, hi Andreas, I would like to learn Serenity by building a simple GUI app. What's the best way to get going with that? I think the best way probably is to try to work on the existing GUI apps. That's usually how people get familiar with the system, with the GUI system. If you like make some small improvements to another GUI app, then you will learn as you go how the GUI system works. You don't need to start with a new app. In fact, if you start with a new app, it's much harder to learn how stuff fits together. If you look at one of the existing ones, you can sort of see the finished product of how something can be done. And most of our GUI apps are really, really small. So they are quite easy to get into, I think, at least. So I would definitely recommend picking up one of the existing apps and trying to improve something, either by like fixing a bug or adding a small feature somewhere, or just polishing something, rather than starting with a new app. Andrew Castor says, I couldn't find anything about that Adopt a Yak website on Charity Navigator. Yeah, I don't know if it's a legit site or not, but the plush yak is very, very cute. So we may have to relax our charity requirements here. I don't know. It would be good. It would be good to know if it's a legit charity or legit foundation, I guess. But I can't say that I'm well versed in figuring out if a Yak Heritage Foundation is legit or not. It's not really my area of expertise. Ben Steinfield says, I've noticed that in many profiles, memset takes quite a bit of time. Is that because all heap allocations are zeroed out? Is this a security feature or something else? Can we make it faster? Yes, we can absolutely make it faster. There has been some recent work by Daniel. He was in the community showcase video a few days ago, actually talking about that. He has written a new implementation of memset that is, I think he said it made our JavaScript tests run 5% faster in total. So that sounded very, very good. I don't think he's quite finished with it, but the basic idea was to make use of the best instructions that the hardware has to offer, and then sort of detecting at dynamic link time which memset implementation we can use on the system. But yes, we do zero out allocations. That's kind of a given. When you see memset, we're probably doing it to zero something. So we do end up spending time on memset in malloc. We don't do it twice scratch that. Yes, we do scrub allocations both in malloc and in free. So we do pay for that. That does push memset up a bit. It is for security reasons and also as a way to catch errors. We've had countless times where we've been able to spot use after free bugs because you see the free scrub pattern in some kind of a pointer access. That is very helpful, I would say. And you could totally turn that off if you wanted to get memset out of the profile, and you could probably recover a couple of % of performance. But the utility of being able to identify those issues quickly instead of less predictable memory corruption, the utility of that is just so high at the moment. So we kind of just leave it in there. But I think optimizing memset is definitely that's a no-brainer, right? Because that's a win no matter what. And then if we in the future someday want to offer a mode where you can build without these mitigations, then maybe we could have a way to opt out of that. Personally, I don't think I would ever want to opt out of it. I like that my freed data is scrubbed. Let's see. Eric W. says, can you explain what try, must, verify, etc. do and why they exist? Sure. So try and must are two macros that we have that operate on an expression. And the main difference between the two is that must is a hard requirement. So this expression here must not return an error. If it returns an error, we will crash the program. So this expression must succeed. And with try, if the expression returns an error, then we will return from the function that's using try. Otherwise, we will, if it's not returning an error, it's returning a value, and then we will extract that value and return it from the try expression. And in practice, you've probably seen this around the code base, but it might look like something like this, right? Where you assign the result of try to something. And what this unwraps to is that it calls this API right here. So you would, the fully expanded version of this would be something like, and then if result is error, release the error. Otherwise, protocol client is result release value. Yeah, so a try this line of code right here basically expands to this. It's just a way to condense all that into a very small, simple thing. And both try and must use the error or type. So this is a type that we use heavily throughout the system, which can contain either an error or a value of some type. And the value of some type is specified here. This is the value type that we use. But the error is always an error object. And by using this consistently throughout the code base, it allows us to propagate errors very, very neatly and cleanly by just using try, because the try here will propagate up to whoever called this guy. And if he's using try to call us, it will propagate to his caller and so on. So it's like an error propagation mechanism that passes errors very nicely and cleanly up the call stack. And must is just a variant of this, but instead of propagating any error, it will just halt the program. If you get an error, it will crash the program right here, saying like, oh, this thing failed. It was not allowed to fail. It must succeed, right? That's what it's for. Verify, on the other hand, it's similar to assert that you often see in other programs. The main difference is that verify is not allowed to fail. So verify must succeed. Verify 1 + 1. This will be truthy, right? So that will succeed, but you can put any expression in here as, I don't know, what we would have, user agent, for example, is null. We use this as assertions, but we don't call it assert because people often expect asserts to be a debug only thing, whereas verify is on both in debug and release builds. So I named it verify to disambiguate or to not confuse it with assert. But it's essentially an assert that's always on. That's the best way to think about it. And we use that to enforce invariance in the code. So like if you know something must be true, then you can take a moment to verify it, and that by verifying things, it ensures that the program does not continue in an invalid state, right? So if you know that you are here in the program, and when we're here, these things must be true. So by verifying them, you make sure that the program does not continue past that point if your assumptions are not actually correct. It's a very helpful way of flushing out bugs, because it stops the program sooner when something isn't the way you think it's supposed to be. Jadeco says, do you allow donations in crypto? At the moment, I don't really have a way to do that. And it's a bit of a tricky thing because paying taxes on such things is complicated in Sweden and can be expensive. So if there's somebody who would like to send a large donation in crypto, then please get in touch with me. But for smaller amounts, I would prefer to just not have to deal with the taxes of it, because it's a lot of work to do the taxes correctly for that stuff. Let's see. Michael says, I saw a photo from a while ago in the Discord where someone had samples from a profile per line in a function. How was this created? We have a there's a line-by-line feature in the profiler. Although last time I tried to use it, it was broken. Also, let me get out of this theme. Ooh, Scarlet, beautiful. So let's see. Get a little profile right there, do a little resizing. Maybe we'll take a look here. So you're supposed to be able to get the profile or get the source code if you open up view and show source, click, but it shows nothing. Okay, that doesn't seem right. Could not map source file, blah, blah, blah. So I think there's just some bug in the way that it tries to find the file. I don't have these files where it's expecting them. Let's see, what was it looking for? Color.h. Okay, so I do have them. They're in like user source Serenity. but it seems like it's not actually prepending user source Serenity here to the source path that it's trying to open. So there's just some bug, but yeah, this feature is here. We just need to fix it, and not going to get into that now, but maybe somebody else will before I even finish the stream. Who knows? Ibrahim says, hello, Andreas. First time catching your stream. Love what you're doing, by the way. I was wondering why C++ instead of C. Sorry if it was asked before. I use C++ because it's a lot more powerful than C. It allows us to write a lot more code much faster. And there's a much smaller chance of making mistakes with C++ compared to C. C++ allows you to save a lot of your own time and avoid a lot of common mistakes. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. It just makes it so much easier to write big, complicated, complex systems in a relatively simple way. So I like that. That's why we use it. If I try to write Serenity in C, we wouldn't be as far as we are now. Like, we would still be doing much more basic things. And it's the fact that we're using a powerful object-oriented language has really helped us develop to the point where we are now so fast. Let's see. Daniel says, hey, what do you think about making a one unifying language to the web? Like one language that does everything like JavaScript, but without redundancy. I don't really know what I think about that. I don't think I even really understand what that would mean. But in general, about like, people often ask, it's like, these questions about what would you do differently if you would redesign the web or re-architect how the web works and stuff like that. And I wouldn't do anything. Like, I don't care about that. I don't mind the way the web works. I'm happy with it the way that it is because I'm a very pragmatic, practical person. Like, the web is the way that it is. We can't change it. Like, no amount of blog posts about how awesome Gemini is going to change the fact that the web exists and all of these things are on the web, and they're not going to move to like these nerdy bare bones platforms, however neat that might be. So I'm happy to try to support the real web, and I think it's a lot of work to support the actual web, but it's very satisfying work, and it's really fun when you put in the time to build the browser engine and build the JavaScript engine, and you actually see it come together and you see it start actually being able to use real websites. Whereas like building a very simplified rendering engine for a very simplified protocol, it wouldn't be nearly as fun. So for example, earlier today, I was debugging a little bit of layout stuff on Reddit, and it just made me think about how neat it is. It's not perfect yet by far, but just the fact that we can load a website like Reddit and get a reasonably competent rendering, missing support for overflow hidden here, very obviously, and some other issues, but still, this is I don't know, it's really satisfying work when you see it start to come together. I don't know how to really describe it. It's so cool. And I don't mind that the web is the way it is. I think I'm just going to try to support it. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Vishnu says, do you have any opinions on functional programming? No, I have not done enough of it to have an opinion. NO116 says, hey, Kling vilken stad bor du I? That means, which town do you live in Swedish? And if you're Swedish, then you already know how to find that out, but I'm not going to answer that publicly because it is slightly private detail. But anyway, Timothy says, just wanted to test out the new yak emoji. Well, Seems like it's working. Thank you very much for joining the yak herd and using the yak bait emoji. I just knew I wanted to add this one because it's one of my favorites. Very, very sweet. Let's see. Oh, Mr. Bill joining up as well. Thank you, Mr. Bill, for joining the herd. I feel like such a Twitch streamer calling people the herd, but there is something funny about that. Falk David says, "Hey, Mr. Kling, what would need to be improved for you to install Serenity on bare metal and use it to do software development?" Well, if it isn't one of our most common questions. So usually what I say is that I'm just going to switch when it's more convenient to use Serenity than it is to use Linux, which is what I use today. So once I can do my C++ programming and my YouTube video making and stuff like that on Serenity, I'm probably just going to switch. Until then, I'm going to keep working on the system the way that I do because it's the most convenient for me. I'm not really in a hurry. I'm just going to switch when it's easier. Network Exception. Hello there. How's it going? Network Exception says, "Hey, Andreas, how do you feel about project ownership? As the original creator and currently only full-time development, you are the single largest driving force. But do you see yourself as just one of the people working on the project and owning the code that you wrote, just as every other contributor owns their share? Or do you think about the project more as yours that others are helping with?" Well, that's a really good question. I guess I definitely started out thinking of the project as mine, and when other people were joining in, I did see it as them helping me with my project. And I think it would be silly to pretend that I don't sometimes still feel that way. But for the most part, I do feel like it's a shared project that we have, and that I started the project, but I have sort of evolved into the leader of the project rather than the owner of the project. And there are definitely many times where I've put the best interests of the project in front of my own personal preferences. So that's, I guess, how I would be able to tell that I don't think of it as strictly my project, because I do regularly make decisions and make decisions regularly that where I think it, like, oh, this is the best thing for the project, rather than like, this is what I would personally like to do. And I do like the idea here implied that you're implying that maybe somebody else could be a full-time developer in the future. That would be super, super cool. I would really like to see that. But I don't think somebody needs to be a full-time developer to be an owner of the project. I think we are all owners of this project now. It's a shared project, and I feel very strongly about it, and I will continue to do my best to move it along, and to keep it going on a path that I think is the good path for the project. But it has become detached from my own personal, from my own personal identity and my own personal feeling of ownership to an extent. Yes, it has become detached from that. Probably not as much as I would like it to be one day, but that's something that's going to have to evolve over time, because it can be hard to detach from your baby, right? But you have to do it a little bit over time. We'll see. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm learning this as I go. I hope that is a good answer. That's the best one I can come up with at this moment. And Amigian says, "Hi Andreas, I saw you creating command palette a while back. You used something called actions there. What are these actions?" So actions in Serenity are these things that you see in menus, for example. Like here you can see view source, inspect DOM tree, open JS console, and so on. Each of these are an action, but you can put actions into menus, but you can also put actions into the toolbar. So this is the go back action right here, is also found in the menu. And these reference the same action. So if you activate one of them, it just activates the go back action. Actions are also nowadays accessible through the command palette. So when I search for go back, wait, I can't search for go back? Okay, we need to fix that. That's not right. But yes, go back is right here. And this is the same action as you would find in the toolbar and in the menu. So an action is just it's a little object that has a name, optional keyboard shortcut, perhaps an icon, stuff like that. And it also has a callback that gets invoked when you trigger the action, or when you activate the action, if you will. Samuel B says, hi, how are you? Please, I want to know how you learn new programming thing like programming language or frameworks. I would recommend doing a lot of programming to learn the new thing. So if you want to learn a new language or a new framework, just use it a lot and we'll see what happens. Wait, no, I didn't finish that sentence correctly, sorry. Just use the programming language that you want to learn and build lots of small little things with it. And the same thing with learning a new framework. Just make a bunch of little things with it and you'll pretty quickly pick it up, I think. At least that's how I've learned new things, by just making little things with it. Let's see, Tears says, I know that Serenity is your full-time job now. Do you still have the same joy/enthusiasm for it as you did when it was a hobby? Love your content, by the way, and the work you do. Yes, I absolutely have the same joy/enthusiasm. I'm just a bit more relaxed because I don't have to stress out about fitting it in every day. Instead, I just wake up and I just go to work on it without stressing out. And that has just been a huge quality of life improvement for me. So I'm super grateful to all the people who help me actually do this for a living. This is so kick-ass. I can barely believe that it's real, but it is. So I really appreciate that. But yes, dude, I'm so excited about this. And I've just been having the best time lately working on the browser. It's just been really kick-ass. And Luke actually showed, not yesterday, but maybe the day before, showing us that the webkit.org blog looks like, if you open one of these articles, it's super nice and actually usable in our browser. I thought that was so kick-ass because I used to work on WebKit, and now I can go to webkit.org and read about what they're doing in our own browser that we have right here. And I thought that was so cool. Anyway, I'm falling behind again. I saw Luke was saying something. Luke was saying, we even take advantage of the scrubbing by letting the kernel tell you if an invalid dereference looks like a use after free. Yes, exactly. That part is so cool, I think. Like, we have this heuristic in the kernel crash report stuff where if a program crashes, then the kernel looks at the crash address or the fault address and tries to figure out, like, oh, this might actually be a use after free based on the byte pattern in the pointer that you try to dereference. So that's a really nice integration of that feature. Edan says that it only works in i686. I'm not sure what that refers to, but whatever that refers to, maybe we can try to fix it. Anthony says, what is your litmus test for determining whether or not to write something? For example, writing a web browser from scratch makes sense, but maybe not a JSON serializer. I would just write both from scratch, dude. I don't know why I would not write a JSON serializer from scratch. I actually did write a JSON serializer from scratch, and we're using that. But I do like the logic in your sentence here, like, oh, maybe making a browser from scratch makes sense, but maybe not a JSON serializer. That's if you said that anywhere else, people would probably look at you a little funny. Oh, Loris. Hey, Loris, how's it going? Laura's from the Zig Showtime says, hi Andreas, have you seen Agni's port of Zig for Serenity? Yes, I have seen. That's pretty exciting stuff. And I don't think it's in yet. Still needs to be marshaled through the PR process, but it is very, very cool to see Zig coming to the system. And I'm curious to see what kind of level of integration with the rest of the system can be achieved with a language like Zig, because as you know, like all our stuff is so C++ heavy, but maybe, I don't know, like how feasible it is to build like very Serenity-ish applications in a language that doesn't directly understand C++. That will be very interesting to see what happens. I am curious. Nice to see you here, by the way. Tommy says, what is your opinion on questions about your opinions? Well, I haven't actually had 100,000 opinions yet, so I don't think I'm qualified to give an answer worth hearing about that. The Real Craxy, that's a strange name. The Real Craxy joins the Golden Yak herd as well. Thank you very much for the support. Welcome. Enjoy your Golden Yak. Let's see. Oh, Clay Freeman joining the Yak herd as well. Thank you very much for the support. Welcome. Enjoy your golden badge. Let's see. Slendy said that I pretty much use C++ for namespaces. I hate adding prefixes to functions like strcpy or vector add. Operator overloading too is a lifesaver. The only thing I hate is the : syntax. I also enjoy namespaces. I really like how namespaces make things look so tidy and allows you to separate things so well, but I don't personally mind the : syntax, so I guess we differ on that. And I'm also not super crazy about operator overloading in many cases, but you know, there's a time and a place for sure. Let's see. Kook asks, does or will Serenity ever have internationalization or translations? I would love to see Serenity in Swedish. It does not currently have any kind of internationalization. I'm personally not interested in that, or I'm not interested in adding that, because I've never seen a translation of software that wasn't substantially worse than the original English version. And I think given like the size of our team and the size of our ambitions, it makes a lot more sense to me to focus everyone's efforts on making like one really good system that is really strong in one language, rather than spreading it out in multiple languages and having like crappy looking UI everywhere. I think it's always so sad. Like even when I worked at Apple, they kept asking me to test out the system in Swedish, like Mac OS and iOS. Like, oh, please, if you speak another language, please try it out on Mac OS on your computer and report issues and stuff. And there were always tons of like little things, because it's really hard to make good internationalization, and it makes stuff look so bad when, I don't know, there's just something that looks so crappy about a system that has bad translations or like not great translations. So for me, I much prefer, even though English is not my first language, technically, I still prefer using it and focusing on trying to make a really good English UI, rather than using it in Swedish and having something that's potentially not as good. Also, it's just a lot less work. Tim Schumacher says, damn, joining the herd actually has a ring to it. I know, right? Let's see. John TB says, I've been watching/listening to your videos while working. You've inspired me to restart hacking on my own projects. Heck yeah. That's awesome. Thanks for making the vids and sharing your knowledge. I'm happy to, dude. I'm really happy to hear that you are inspired to hacking on something. That's awesome. Andre says, hi Andreas, big fan. Tell me, do you like surströmming? Do you have it on a regular basis? I don't like it. I haven't never eaten it, actually. I'm only familiar with the smell. I'm a vegetarian personally, so I don't eat stuff like that. But I do actually have a can of it in the fridge because I bought one because I want to show my wife what it smells like. And every now and then I ask her, like, so you want to go smell the can of fish here? And she always just says, like, maybe later, or like maybe another day. She keeps postponing it. And I just want to show her my stinky fish that I have. But I don't know why she doesn't want to try it. But one day, although I'm getting a little concerned because when I bought it, it was like the can was kind of flat, but it's kind of starting to become a little spherical, the can of fish, so I may need to replace it with another one. It's alarming. Anyway, I don't like surströmming or the way it smells, but I am familiar with it. Let's see. Omar says, hello Andreas, I'm trying to separate my application's GUI and process using a localhost TCP socket. Is there a better way to pass data between two separate processes in Linux or in general? So if you are on Unix, I would recommend using a like a plain local socket rather than using a TCP socket. You don't have to, of course. You can use a TCP socket to talk to yourself via loopback. But I guess I enjoy using local sockets. They also offer some additional features, like you can send file descriptors between the processes and things like that. Whereas with a TCP socket, you're kind of limited to just transferring data back and forth, but you can't send like other types of resources, like local resources, because it has to be a more general protocol, since you don't know if the host is your peer. You don't know if your peer is on the local machine or somewhere else. So I would recommend using local socket if you are only on Unix. If you are writing something that has to work on Windows as well, I don't know at all what the answer would be. But even if you do use a local socket, it would still be like the interface that you would use is very similar. So I don't know necessarily that it would change the quality of your code or the look of your code substantially, but it might give you access to some features that you might have use of. Tears says, are there areas in programming where you are very dogmatic / strict in the tools, modules, frameworks, etc. that you allow yourself to use? Yes. In Serenity, we only use Serenity stuff. That is kind of, I'm very dogmatic and strict about that. Like, we don't want to bring in third-party code to Serenity, but instead, like, if we need something, we'll build it ourselves. And I'm obviously the person who started with that in Serenity, and I've stuck with it the whole time, and I convinced everybody else to stick to it as well. And look at all the fun we're having because of that. Now we have this gigantic system all in one repository where you can travel all the way from a kernel to a TLS implementation to a JPEG reader to whatever you need, all under one roof. And that happened. We have that now because of this very strict approach to, like, no third-party stuff. Let's just build it ourselves, even if it sucks, even if it's painful. Let's go through it. We'll come out the other side with something amazing. And it's pretty sweet because now we're, in many cases, we are on the other side and we have all this amazing resources. So I'm very happy about that. Edon says, just realized my previous message was a bit opaque. I was referring to the source level profiler view. There you go. Yes, I see. So it only works on i686. So we need to fix it for x86-64. Andrew suggesting various other IPC mechanisms like POSIX message queues, POSIX shared memory segments, UDP message brokers, blah, blah, blah. Yes, there are many different ways to do IPC, but if you just want to talk between two programs and exchange bytes, I do feel like using sockets is the nicest. If you want to exchange large chunks of data, though, you probably want to, you don't want to pass it like serialized across a socket, but rather you would want to do some kind of shared memory. So it depends on what kind of data exchange you need to do between your peers. Armo says, Andreas, the longer you stay in control, the more consistent the system will continue to be. This is how the philosophy of the system will permeate and stick throughout the SerenityOS community. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously true. I think that by me staying in control of the system and leading the system, it does have a very, very strong, clear focus, a very clear vision in terms of like user experience, in terms of visual design, things like that. Even though many people are contributing in those areas, I do think that my presence sort of does enforce a certain style, and I think that's ultimately what is good for the project, is to have one person who says that, like, this is what we're trying to build here. This is the kind of experience that we're going for, and that's it looks so very polished because of that. I think if we try to distribute that and just let anybody make it look in any way they felt like at any given moment, we would lose a lot of that feeling of polish and quality. So there are obviously pros and cons to anything like that, but that is the way that we're running this project, and I do think that it's better off because of it. If you compare it to the what happens visually to most other open source projects, I do think that we are in a better position than most. So but I don't want to I don't want to crap on anybody, but I think it's a well-known issue that many open source projects struggle to be visually coherent or like visually appealing. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Humbird says, hey Andreas, love the browser hacking videos. Can't wait for the next one. Yeah, me too. I love them, and I also want to make more. We got new gold yaks right here. Tears joining the herd. Thank you. And Kleines Filmröllchen as well joining the yak herd. Look at all these golden yak boys. Welcome. Thank you. Gigin was saying, first, I actually loved your action bar over apps. Is it possible to replicate the behavior on Linux? Do you know how I can proceed? I have no idea how to do that on Linux, actually. I think the trouble on Linux is that everything, or apps are not necessarily built using the same toolkit, right? Like you have apps built with Qt, you have apps built with GTK, you also have apps built in other toolkits entirely. There are lots of different toolkits, and you would need to, if you wanted a consistent command palette system on Linux that would work for any application, you would have to write a lot of code to make it work for every one of those toolkits. And also, I think the code would have to live inside of the toolkit, inside of each toolkit. So that's a big thing. But if you really want to do it, I guess I would try to start by picking one of the toolkits like GTK or Qt and seeing if you can build something that exposes all of the application or all of the context appropriate actions in some kind of a UI for applications written in that toolkit. See how that goes. Let's see. Samuel B says, I've watched your video about your path from self-taught developer with no degree to Nokia then Apple. I'm on the same way. I'm not a degree, but I want to work for a big company like you. I've begun to contribute to open source projects for visibility. Yes, I think that's a very, very good idea. If you don't have a degree, you can absolutely still get programming jobs at many companies, like the big ones as well. It's pretty rare in this industry that companies will have a hard requirement that somebody have a degree, and it's something I consider very nice, obviously, because I don't have one and I've been able to work where I want to work. So contributing to open source project, participating in big open source project is a great way to not just increase your visibility, but also learn very important skills that will be useful to you in that career. So yes, absolutely recommend it. And man, I am running over time here, so I gotta go. Damn it. There's so many chat messages today. Sorry. I'm struggling to keep up. This is I mean, it's not the first time I'm struggling to keep up, but it's been a lot of messages today, so really, really nice. Nikolai said, oh my god, if that can of fish explodes in the fridge, that will be an expensive kitchen restoration. Yes, absolutely. I really need to either like get her to smell the frickin' fish already, or maybe get rid of it, because we had to get a fridge like last year, and I don't want to have to get a new one again. Anyway, let me see. Let me just take maybe one more question here, and then we have to wrap up. So Sam Bowman says, do you think working on things in the open is good for accountability / discipline / actually getting things done? I tend to get distracted easily, but after showing off my work in progress partition editor in the community showcase, I'm noticing I feel a bit more driven to actually deliver. Wondering if that might be something worth taking advantage of. Yes, I absolutely super duper agree with that. Working publicly and in the open is really powerful. But that's not to be confused with talking about your ideas in the open, saying like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That's not necessarily very helpful in my experience. In fact, it usually works against you, because you lose. If you talk about your ideas without working on them, then you kind of lose the urge to implement them. But working on something and showing off your progress in public, I think that's hugely helpful, because it does create this feeling of accountability, and also this feeling that you want to see it through and deliver on something that you've shown. It creates like a little fire under your butt, I guess. And that fire, at least, is super useful to me. I rely on that fire every day. And originally, I started working so much in public because I wanted to have that fire, not just for programming, but also for for living clean and living healthy and these kind of things. So I wanted to put myself into a position where I would be accountable, maybe not to somebody else, but to myself, and it's been really helpful for that. So I totally agree with you. I think it's absolutely worth taking advantage of. Calculated Risk Taker with a super chat saying, Andreas, what would it take to port Node.js into Serenity? I know there's libjs, but not sure if it's equivalent to Google's V8. I don't know. Never tried looking at it. Somebody could probably tell you if they looked into it, but I don't know. That's somebody would have to do the work of investigating that. It's not really something I'm personally interested in, but it could certainly be done. Just would probably take a bunch of work. But thank you for the super chat. Jesus said, I have no degree and work at NVIDIA. Skills are what matter. I have a GitHub profile that is better than any resume. Yeah, there you go. Totally true. You can walk into big tech jobs with nothing but a strong open source resume, let's say. Anyway, I'm going to have to wrap it up. So this will be the end of office hours. Thank you all so much for coming and for all of the lovely messages, all of the super chats, and all of the people joining the Golden Yak herd. Really appreciate the support. And it's awesome that we keep having these chats every Friday. It's just one of the nicest things. So thank you all for making it such a sweet tradition. Let's see, Clay with the super chat, running late here, saying, have you ever thought about doing live programming broadcasts? Group coding is always more fun. I've thought about it and kind of decided not to do it. It's too distracting for me, and I prefer to just make my focused videos. I do like the way that they are, but But, you know, we never know how you might feel in the future. So thank you for the super chat, though. Oh, Donatas says, hey, Andreas, a few months ago I mentioned that I'd be moving to Sweden, and finally here I am. Welcome to Sweden, dude. I hope you will enjoy it here. Try the dairy products. They're awesome. All right. See you all next time. Have a good weekend. Bye.